Start with the world's largest mobile operator, which is China Mobile, headquartered in Hong Kong. 844 million customers, people. It's headquartered, in Hong Kong, but it's really an operator that covers the entire Chinese mainland. It's listed on the market in Hong Kong and in the New York Stock Exchange since 1997, but it is controlled by the Chinese government, which has about 72% interest through a structure that they've set up. So this one is firmly in the hands of the Chinese government. The market capitalization, if you look at the US ADR, which gives you the same thing because it's convertible with the Hong Kong stocks, is $222.8 billion. Price earnings ratio of 12.71. Dividend yield not too bad, 3.56. But Wayne, if you look back historically, it hasn't really performed all that well because its goal clearly is just to get as many coverages and as many customers as possible.
Get as many people out, get as much of the territory onto the network. So, every rice paddy has got to have internet coverage.
They even put a tower on top of Mount Everest at one point, apparently, to cover by
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Just for,
look, this is virtually the ultimate utility here. When you read their financial statements and their reports going back, everything is just going on very, very nicely. There's no domestic threat here. There's no competition here. They are the carrier. They dominate
70% market
everything.
share in China. China Unicom has got about a 20% stake, and I think there's some other China Telecom.
There's no real competition here. They're clearly the dominant party.
Let's look at the share chart, because the problem here is that if you've got a company that's dominated by the Chinese government and they don't really care about profits, and they'll from time to time give them a hand up and then put a brake on their margins, improve their pricing, then you're not going to really see any fireworks, because earnings then come through a little bit unpredictable. If they have excessive capex.
Look, the share chart, although it does show some variation, obviously, earnings don't really show variation. Every year, revenue's up 2-3%, earnings are up or down 2-3%. They've spent more or less the same amount of capital expenditure each year. But once again, as we spoke about early on, there's big growth in data here.
Okay, so at some point, I guess, 834 million, that is like 12% of the human population.
It is astonishing. So they are expanding out of China now. They're going into Vietnam.
They are extending their network where they're going up from 3G connections in some of the rural areas.
Although 4G's 70% of their customers are 4G already.
Covered already. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
No, the 3G component is actually quite small. Territorially, it might be different because you just cover a few big cities and you got half the people there. But they have a lot on 4G already. Now they're expanding into Vietnam and they're going a little bit outside of the Chinese borders. But
they've got a business in Pakistan.
Yeah,
as well,
Pakistan. Apparently. Yeah. So they also, but they are a little bit ex-growth. You can't get more than what they've got.
I guess that's the issue, though, because we know that Alibaba and Tencent does very well, and Tencent does very well on the gaming. So these are all their customers. Basically, this is how this thing works.
Their customers move through their base. Now, whether they want to compete with their customers or not, I don't know. Whether they want to add some sort of value-added service and not just providing it here. I just don't know. That would be an automatic choice to try and if you've got so many customers, why don't you try and sell them something? They haven't done it to date.
And I would imagine that's because the Chinese government has said to them, you keep on that side of the fence.
Just do this and other guys do that.
This is what we do.
And as we well know, they regulate that market massively. The Chinese government, besides owning this company, they regulate the telecommunications.
Like, for example, when I went to China about 2 years ago, I ran around the airport in Beijing for a while trying to get a SIM card, because I knew if I'm going to be here, I won't be able to go for a run because I won't be able to use maps. I eventually got one from China Unicom on a little desk somewhere in the back of the airport. That was fine. Google didn't work at all.
No.
None of the Facebook services worked at all. Just the Apple Maps worked. So then I was good.
It doesn't work like we work here. Their Google's not in. That's maybe what Tencent. Tencent's got 500 million, 400 million.
And all of their kind of search equivalents.
Facebook, Twitter.
None of it works.
None of it works
because the Chinese government doesn't want people getting carried away and getting too many ideas.
They don't want Tiananmen Square or Arab Spring or Chinese Spring or anything like that happening. So
they really keep the lid on things.
They definitely, and that I don't think that's changing.
Okay, so now, would you buy China Mobile? The biggest, the largest, you can buy it in New York?
12 PE is cheap, massive cash flows,
We've got one client who
dividend
bought
yield.
this thing about 10 years ago and is not yet back in profit. I mean,
Yeah.
the all-time high of the share price was $101
Yeah.
in 2007, and it's been sort of going up, down, and all over the
But
place
I
since
actually
then.
would buy it, surprisingly
Yeah.
enough, because it's a good dividend yield. It's a good, it's solid. It's not going anywhere. It's got such a
And
dominant
as you
market
say,
share.
maybe they'll surprise on the upside with the data once
Yeah,
the
but look,
scale
it's not
effects start to
exciting.
benefit.
So let's put it that way. This is clearly not an exciting play. So maybe if your hot stocks is a bit of a sexy portfolio, you know. So maybe not for hot stocks, but you know, for widows and orphans and retired people, it's actually
Okay, so
not a
it
bad
sounds
go.
like you're going to go hot on this
I'll
one.
go hot
I'll
on
go
this one.
not hot just to keep
Yeah.
the track on here and make sure that the customers understand what's going on.